Welcome back to Mentoria 180. Today we are going to be filming our very first Sunday session. In the Sunday sessions, we're going to be kind of addressing one topic from a counseling perspective to learn different strategies and components from that theory that you can implement into your own life. So today we're going to be talking about a CBT skill, which comes from cognitive behavioral therapy. It's a very widely used approach in the counseling world, and cognitive behavioral therapy is a type of talk therapy that is used to kind of identify maladaptive thoughts or things that are negative that keep people from achieving their goals and living the best life that they want to. So today we're really kind of learning about the skill of behavioral activation, which I did post a kind of little snapshot of the different things that includes, really focusing on the idea of what makes life worthy of living. And this skill identifies kind of three core components that go into like making goals. So that would be, your values, your pleasure, and mastery. And we're going to go through all of that. And I also linked that video down below. So if you want to kind of look at that to be helpful and use as a tool when you're trying to like self-reflect or journal and write those kind of things down. Because I posted that video at the beginning of July because I find that new months, new weeks is just kind of that reset for myself. And I always kind of, encourage other people to use that time to self-reflect and kind of really plan out your goals and your behaviors and things that you want to do. And so this idea of behavioral activation is a CBT skill that helps us to understand how our emotions influence certain behaviors. And many of us kind of have, those moments where we're lacking motivation, and kind of it goes into this vicious cycle of, something happened, or it's kind of like that routine thing where you're lacking that motivation of like, oh, I don't want to do this because of that. So something like as a life event might have happened where you're finding these patterns kind of reappearing in your life, or a trigger that sometimes happens, or just the habits, because we're, as human beings, we're habitual individuals. So everyday habit that you necessarily don't want to be what aligns with your values and things. So, it might start slowly over time. But it usually starts with a vicious cycle of what happened, whether that's a life event, a trigger, or a habit. And then it goes with how you feel. So like the kind of symptoms you're having in the moment of why you keep falling into that cycle, and what you do or what you don't do. So I think it's really important to recognize these cycles. And again, this comes with, that self-reflection that I was talking about, and really taking the time and putting in that work to realize kind of where your cycle starts. Here's kind of like that vicious cycle. So again, putting it up here so you can see it, visualize. I'm a big visual learner. So kind of, the what happened, and then seeing like how you feel, and then what you do and what you don't do. So kind of recognizing this is super important, especially as we go into, understanding to us what makes life worth living. Behaviors that improve our mood and obviously our overall well-being and mental health. So kind of values is kind of described as what's meaningful in your life. And then we all have our own different core beliefs that are in us that create those negative automatic thoughts, which go into this vicious cycle of inactivation of behavior, which we're trying to reverse, which is what CBT is all about. So kind of what makes life meaningful to you, what things is meaningful. That also, that's what makes your life worth living. Pleasure involves kind of like play activities or things that you enjoy. So your hobbies, the things that you do outside of, work and that you look forward to most. Another one would be your mastery. So this is like any activity that involves the development of skills. So this could be sports, it could be work, all of those kinds of things, still like it can be a hobby, but you're taking in the development of the skills that are more likely aligned to kind of more of what you need to do of responsibilities versus what you want to do, which is more of the pleasure aspect. And then another great part of all three of these that go together is the idea of goals. So this is like where it provides those outlines that you need to experience more work, mastery things, more pleasure, and value-driven behavior, which is what really gets the behavior activation going. So, when you're not feeling like the motivation to do something, aligning your goals with these three things is super important. To have a balance of goals centered on your values, pleasures, and mastery is key. So the idea of goals, as highlighted in CBT, is kind of what prompts or kind of provides the foundation for engaging in goal-directed activities and behaviors. And there are a few different kind of areas, common areas that they have found in people's lives that they find value in, which include physical well-being. So kind of thinking about what kind of values do you have regarding your physical well-being? How do you want to look at yourself? Family relationships. What kind of relationships do you want with your family? What kind of, if you're a mother, what kind of mother do you want to be? A father, a sister, grandparent, uncle? Like, what kind of family member do you want to be? What kind of traits do you embody? What kind of behaviors do you have? What kind of relationships do you want to build with those other people in your family? What is important to you about a good family? So kind of identifying what that picture of a family looks like to you. Intimate relationships is another area that people find most value in, is intimate relationships. What kind of partner do you want to be? What quality of relationship do you want to be a part of? How do you want to spend your time together? Another area is your mental and emotional health. So what helps you maintain a healthy mindset, or your emotional health and your mental health? So what keeps you kind of in check with your health, maintaining that good, sound mental health? Why is it important to you? What issues would you like to address? Kind of like always being self-reflective of what's going on in your life and how that is influencing your mental health and your social-emotional health. It all goes together. Another part of CBT is talking about this 5-part model, which we can have a whole other session on, or a short video about the 5 different parts and how they influence one another. Another area that is identified by CBT as a common value would be your friendships and social relations. So what kind of friend do you want to be? There's this pattern you're seeing now between these different areas of values is, what kind of person do you want to be, which aligns really well with your overall thoughts and your values. So again, in this point, what kind of friend do you want to be? How would you like to act towards your friends? How can these relationships be improved? Another area of values is like your employment and career. So what kind of work is valuable to you? What qualities you want to be as an employer, or as an employee or employer? What kind of work relationships would you like to build? Along with that too, another area of values is education, training, and personal growth. So how would you like to grow? What kind of skills would you like to develop? What would you like to know more about? This is kind of like a big area that I find myself reflecting on a lot. I view myself as a lifelong learner and constantly seeking for personal growth. That's kind of like where my goal-directed behavior and activity comes from. This is kind of one of those main drivers for me. Another area of values is hobbies and recreation. So how would you like to enjoy yourself? What relaxes you? What makes you feel most playful? Are there any special interests that you would like to pursue or learn more about? Another area would be spirituality. So what kind of relationship do you want with kind of that higher power that you believe in, whether that's God, nature, earth, mankind? What does having a spiritual life mean to you, and how can you exercise this? Another area of values that kind of drive people's behaviors is the idea of citizenship and community. So what kind of environment do you want to be a part of? How do you want to contribute to your community? This is kind of one of those areas of life that people value as they grow and develop, and they go through different stages of life. So that is found to be kind of one of those areas that grows as you grow older. So a good way to kind of promote that self-reflection is taking those categories of values and kind of, writing down in each category what you find valuable, those common values. So I'm going to kind of go back through those categories and list off some that CBT has found to be a recurring principle under each of these values. And if you want to write them down, kind of keep a list, because then the next idea from this is to rate how valuable you feel about this. So back to the family relations, common things that people value or want to work towards is work on current relationships. You want to spend more time with your family, take an active role in raising your children, maintain consistent, healthy communication. So those are kind of, reoccurring themes that therapists have found when using CBT with clients. For, a different aspect of that for marriage and couples and intimate relationships, they find that people want to establish a sense of safety and trust, give and receive affection, spend quality time together, show each other how much you love and appreciate one another. On the other end of that, for like friendships and social relationships, people commonly want to, end destructive relationships, finding the relationships that are genuine and where they want to put their energy. I find too personally that this grows only as you get older. Our time gets shorter as our responsibilities grow, and taking the pleasure and the time to work on those social interactions and friendships, it puts a lot of extra work and things on your plate. So understanding kind of where you want to put your energy to build those stronger relationships and kind of end the destructive ones are really important. They also find that reaching out for new relationships, finding that sense of belonging, and having and keeping close friends that you can spend time with, and having those people where you have common interests so you can do things together with them. So those are kind of the common goals they find under that, broad umbrella of friendships and social interactions values. Mental and emotional health, they find that people want to seek fun things that give them pleasure, have more free time, be independent, take care of yourself, challenge any negative thinking, make your own decisions, engage in therapy, taking medications or staying active. So that overall, that's a big area that people need to really self-reflect on, is your mental and emotional health, because it looks different for everyone. Everyone's own complex kind of experiences they have went through in life really, comes in here, as well with all of the different areas of values. But this one I feel can be more fluid and dynamic in the sense that it can change and adapt as we go through life and they have different experiences. Your physical well-being, people want to live in secure and safe surroundings, engage in regular exercise, have a steady income to meet your physical needs, eat, nutritious foods, and get enough sleep, and kind of manage the balance between rest and activity, not letting yourself get burnt out and pushing yourself too hard, and recognizing kind of those red flags or symptoms in your body to know like, hey, maybe I'm not doing enough or I'm doing too much. So kind of really listening to your body. For employment, being powerful and able to influence others and have authority, people find value in that, making important decisions that affect the entire organization, kind of having that power and knowing that you're helping others. That's a big, area under employment and personal growth and career, being respected by others, being a leader. Money too is a big motivator to kind of keep people value within the employment, being productive and hard work, achieving goals, enjoying the work you do. And that kind of like goes into the education, training, and personal growth area of values, being involved in undertakings that you believe are important to you, trying new things in life, learning new things, trying different things, being daring and seeking adventure, having an exciting life, not living that boring life, whatever that looks like to you. It's always different for everyone. And learning how to do challenging things that help you grow as a person. And then the idea of spirituality, following different traditions and customs and living accordingly to different principles that you may follow and believe in, growing in your understanding of yourself and the personal calling or your life purpose, finding that meaning in life from the spirituality aspect. And then the citizen and community, again, not last but not least, is contributing to the larger community, helping people in need, improving society, feeling like you're a part of it, that you're contributing. That's found to be a very, very important value to people. Again, especially as you grow older, that kind of comes into the forefront of things. So out of those things, obviously people have different identifiers. Those are just kind of common themes that have been found throughout counseling. And then we ask, usually within a session, that you would rate those different values within those areas. So really, again, self-reflecting and kind of weighing about how much does this value or thing that I want in my life contribute to how I'm feeling and how I'm acting. So again, that behavior activation, understanding how our emotions and values influence our behavior. And then once you kind of take those values and rate them and kind of know how important they are to you, that's when you translate them into activities. So, let's take the family relationships, and you're talking about wanting to be more involved in your child's life, learning with them, building special memories and spending that quality time. So taking that value and then changing into an activity. So, maybe attending all their sports events, or at dinner time, you have certain conversations that you want to bring up and address, or plan certain activities over the weekend that you know that you valued as growing up, that you remember that you did with your parents, and now you want to do the same thing with your children. Or, you know, simply like going to more PTO meetings and being involved within the school. Again, that also kind of overlays not only just with your kind of family relationships areas of values and parenting, but kind of contributing to your community. So there's many activities that you can find that if, you know, you have correlating values of, you know, wanting to contribute to community and being a better parent, that one task can, you know, relate to both of them, which is a really good thing. Kind of realizing that, you know, you don't have to do everything to have value in your goals and things, but you can do it at the same. And then once you kind of, there are some other kind of like thought-provoking questions that a lot of counselors ask their clients to really help them explore their own values. Some of them are like, imagine that you're an important newscaster and someone's doing a biography story on your life. How would you want them to describe you? What would you want them to describe? How you spent your time, how you related to others, what's important to you, kind of, you know, that biography of your life, being the outsider. What would you want other people to see and remember about you? That's another good way to kind of explore your own values. And if you could read the mind of another person, what would you think would be important to them? What would be in a good relationship? Thoughts about their qualities, what you stand up for, what your strengths are, you know, kind of. So again, looking at who you are as a person from another person's perspective. You know, this really helps you kind of, you know, we are humans where other people's opinions matter so much to us. As much as we want to try to say that they don't and things and kind of live your life unapologetically, still what other people think about you really influences the way you act, especially in front of others. So kind of, you know, taking that side of things to help you explore your values. When you think about your heroes, the people that are directly in your life, or the people you look up to, what are their qualities? What do you admire about them? Usually that's kind of the values that you want to be as a person too. And imagine if you're writing your own biography, that's another good way to do. So what kind of things would you want people to remember you as? And if you're finding like a disconnect of you're not living your life that way, again, this is a good way to kind of, you know, see how your values can create different goals to get, you know, the behaviors started in your life. Now that we kind of went over a bunch of different areas of values and kind of how you can explore your own values, the other component of behavior activation from CBT is identifying activities that bring you pleasure. So those ideas of hobbies and play. So social activities, you know, that can be pleasurable, you know, socializing with family and friends, go hanging out with friends, enjoying your children and hanging out with them, meeting new people, your pets is another component of this. The intimate relationships, again, too, kind of like your partner and how you want to spend your time together and find that quality relationship. And then, of course, the other side of pleasure would be your hobbies and interests. So whether that's reading, dancing, playing music, board games, gardening, going to museums, video games, kind of, there's so many different hobbies and things, interests people that bring them pleasure. For me personally, you know, that's kind of being outdoors. I love nature. I live on a farm and I absolutely love my horses. Just being around them gives me a sense of, they just ground me, you know, they make me feel so calm. And just right now it's starting to pour where I live, and this has given me so much peace. So kind of just giving you a glimpse into my life. So like that kind of gives me pleasure, kind of being in the moment and taking in the nature and hearing the rain and watching it come down, those things like that. And obviously looking outside, I love being in the country and my horses and things. So if I'm able to see my horses out there in the rain, which usually they're not, but those are the kinds of things that give me pleasure. Me and my fiance going on walks with our dog, going horseback riding, anything kind of like that really gives me a sense of pleasure. So kind of understanding those areas is super important. This also can kind of relate into sensory experiences that people find pleasurable, you know, certain smells, images, sounds, taste. So whether that's taking a bubble bath or lighting your favorite candle and tasting some of your favorite food, listening to your favorite music, that's another kind of aspect of pleasure besides just the activities that, are recreational and your ideas of hobbies and going out and hanging out with friends. And the next layer of, the kind of three components that CBT behavior activation talks about is the idea of masteries. This is involving activities that include the development of skills. So whether that is, within your work or a sport aspect, that really kind of gives you a sense of fulfillment, whether that's enjoying your job, finding creativity in your job, understanding the potential for continuing growth in different skills, whether that's in your sports or your work, kind of the social contact that you have with coworkers, colleagues, and then other skill-based activities, include the sports, music, home improvement, woodworking, crafting, any of those kinds of things that involve skills that, go beyond just a hobby. Again, these two can often kind of overlap, just like we've seen in the value areas. They can overlap, and those different activities can both mean pleasure and mastery, which I think is important to recognize. For me, this area is definitely fulfilled by my studies. I absolutely love school. I've always loved school, which I find to translate over into, the pleasure of things for me as well, not just mastery. I love being in class and learning different things and reading and applying what I've learned from a textbook into the real world, which is what ultimately has led me to, trying to start this channel and helping other people learn the same strategies and tools that I've learned in school that have really helped my well-being. So I just love to constantly learn, whether that's, from the textbook, my personal experiences. I really love when I can connect it all together. Again, I talk about self-reflection a lot, which I will continue to, but that's a big tool that I use, whether, that's writing it down or just simply like losing kind of myself in thought when I'm driving, or just little things where I'm kind of like, oh, like how can I improve my schoolwork, or how can I improve my relationship with my fiance, my family, at work, all those kind of different things. So I find fulfillment from mastery to be really important to my value-driven behavior and goals. A lot of my goals I find right now, probably because I still am in school, to be within this category of mastery, because I'm constantly, learning different things from my program, which being in a counseling study, it's a lot of the personal things that I can help and see other people. So really being that bridge for people is really important to me, which is why I wanted to create this page and have that safe space on the internet where people can learn, because counseling can be a scary thing. It's a very still taboo subject in ways of, everyone's aware of counseling and, the importance of mental health, but actually going and doing it is a different story. It's still kind of that like scary unknown. So I hope that, coming on here and letting people share their own experiences, me sharing my own experiences and how that connects to counseling is helpful. And knowing that, it doesn't have to be this complicated thing. It can be, simply, reviewing what activities you enjoy and your values and how that's so important to influencing your behavior, which again, is combined in all these different parts of our lives. So then I guess the next part of what a counseling session would look like if you and your counselor were kind of going over behavior activation would be taking all of those activities that you find pleasure and mastery in and writing a big list, writing them all down and realizing, how that fits the aims of your life, the goals of your life, and how your values are connected to your pleasure and mastery. This is really where, understanding you and your motivation within life helps prompt the behaviors to achieve your goals and continuously, not get into that negative vicious cycle of like, oh, I'm going to save my energy and not do this, or I'm going to allow, my feelings of being sad or my anxiety to stop me from wanting to engage in these activities. So realizing in that moment when you're letting your anxiety, your depression, or your lack of motivation kind of, derail your progress and what your goals are in life, changing it, stopping the cycle there. So writing down like a whole list. There's plenty of things. It could be, singing around the house, going camping, going to church, losing weight, going to the beach, going on a date, jogging, walking, listening to music. I mean, the list is endless. Bird watching, singing with groups, sitting out in nature, listening to the rain. It's so like hanging out with people, meeting new people, saving money, spending money, doing schoolwork, I love doing schoolwork. I love writing papers. I love doing research. So something like that for me would be pleasure and mastery at the same time. You know, my fiance loves to go to the races. That would be his area of pleasure. Or he loves to go hunting. So many different things. I love to read, garden. Again, that nature aspect. So finding a thing that you really enjoy simply as like nature, or somebody else could be that they love to be at the beach. So finding activities that you can do in an area that gives you a sense of pleasure is important. So then the next part of, you know, identifying all of these values, pleasure and mastery kind of activities is then to put that into creating goals. I'm sure many of you have heard about SMART goals. They're super important. It is used in multiple counseling approaches, including CBT. So kind of understanding the balance of your values, pleasure, and mastery, and how those three go together in creating your goals. That's really how you initiate your behavior. So kind of, you know, this idea of SMART goals, starting with S being specific, creating a goal, seeing exactly what you want to achieve. It has to be exact. It can't be just, oh, I really want to start eating healthy. No, I want to start eating 3 plant-based meals out of my 5-day week. On the weekends, I allow myself to eat ice cream or something along those lines. So being specific within the numbers. Next would be measurable, like giving yourself a time. It has to be time sensitive. You know, you can continue to say, oh, I want to lose weight. And you can say, I want to lose weight all the time. People say that she's kind of always wanted that generic goals, but giving yourself that timeline of measurable, like I want to lose 5 pounds in 5 weeks, so a pound a week or something along those lines. Or I want to eat 5 fruits within the weekend, things like that. So you have to, again, be specific and measurable, understanding that you can like maybe go onto your to-do list or tracking and check it off that you completed that goal. Part of the goal. It has to be attainable. So is it possible? Is it realistic? There's so many times where, you know, people put unrealistic goals on themselves and they wouldn't do that to somebody else. So when I'm in those moments of, you know, trying to put too much of myself, I'm like, stop and reflect. Would I ask somebody else to do all of these things within this time zone or time limit? And the answer is no. So that's when I know that I'm being too hard on myself and giving myself unrealistic expectations. And again, if you're giving yourself unrealistic expectations within goals, it's going to fuel the vicious cycle of behavioral inactivation, which is what we are trying to avoid and continue to kind of, you know, activate these behaviors and stop that cycle. So I feel like making your goals attainable is an extremely important part of behavioral activation. And that goes, again, attainable and really realistic. Those go hand in hand. You know, I just said about being realistic. You can't, if you haven't practiced running in 5 years, but you want to run a marathon next month, that's unrealistic. So kind of keeping that in mind. And the last is tractable. So like I said, you know, checking things off of your list or realizing that, oh, like I did eat my 5 fruits in the 3 days and things like that. Tracking is super important. I find tracking to be a big motivator for me and my goals. I love to have a to-do list, and checking that off gives me the greatest sense of achievement and accomplishment. Another really good tip to kind of planning these SMART goals, you know, being specific, how you're going to achieve it, making it measurable, attainable, realistic, and trackable. You also want to kind of recognize certain barriers and having kind of that plan of, you know, if this barrier comes up and derails my kind of motivation or timeline, how can you get back on track right away? Not letting those negative automatic thoughts, whether that's, you know, oh, I'm a failure, oh, I'm not going to achieve this in that time, kind of being adaptable and saying, hey, no, I'm not going to let that take over and fall into this vicious cycle. This is what I'm going to do instead when that barrier arises. So it's a really important tool to use as well. So I hope that this video was helpful in kind of understanding the skill of behavioral activation from CBT. I'm sure in a lot of the vlogs coming up, I'm going to use CBT principles a lot. It is a widely known treatment plan for mental health. You know, it's really used for anxiety and depression a lot, and different things of those kind of disorders and maladaptive thought processes. So I'm really hopeful that this was helpful to you all and kind of broke it down for you. And I hope that it really prompted that self-reflection that's needed to create such goals that align with our values and ideas of pleasure and mastery, and how all of those are related to one another to really build, you know, good habits and actions and behaviors that really, you know, make us live a better life and